Up here, good? We're good. Yes, Bonnie, good? Yes, everybody else, good? All right, good on that side, good on this side. All right. We're gonna call to order the city council work session for Monday, October 30th, 2023. Please stand and join us for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I know last time I made a mistake instead of roll call Amanda, and it's clearly Lisa. Lisa, roll call, please.
Kind of a twist in there. Jeff Dumpy.
Here.
Tracy Coach. Here. Bill LeClaire.
Here.
Darla LeClaire. Here. Tim Patry.
Here.
Bonnie Shimalonis. Here. Scott Steckmesser.
Here.
Adam Mahowski.
Here.
All right.
Pretty short agenda. Under number 4, we have discussion items. There are 2. First up, under A, it is a discussion of local business concerns about city noise ordinance provisions and possible changes to noise ordinance and beer garden regulations. Section 9-2-5 and section 6-1-19 of the city's municipal code. In our packets, and we should have those right behind the agenda. I believe Greg and Chief will team up on this one and kind of walk us through, and hopefully we can make some changes as necessary.
And I'd remind everybody, we are live streaming tonight. I'm the only one that ever forgets that. So it's unfortunate things going on here. Oh, we got the radio. Santa Cruz, we have as our guest tonight the vendors from Whiskey Bees. The chief, Adam, and I met with these folks a couple of weeks ago to talk about some ongoing concerns with the city's so-called noise ordinance, which is in the nuisance portion of the city ordinances, and specifically the provisions that relate to amplified sound, whether it's from live or recorded music emanating from inside a building, or whether it's outdoor entertainment. We did note that there are some current, you might call them inconsistencies in the ordinance as far as different times of day. Basically, and we've highlighted, highlighted in the attached noise ordinance, which is on pages 2B, 3B, 4B, the sections that we might focus in on our discussion. First, section 2B, love the term phonographs, radios, or similar devices. Victrolas would fit too. But an amplified noise, there's a prohibition on, I'll call it amplified noise, mechanically, electronically amplified noise, between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. It's on the face of it, a prima facie evidence of a violation if such sound is, clearly audible, plainly audible within an enclosed structure that's used for residential purposes and located on a parcel that is zoned residential. So wouldn't apply if you had a downtown apartment in a business area. You might have a bar next door with some noise or some music. It does apply, however, if within the 4 walls of a residence in a residentially zoned area, you can hear music, let's say it's amplified music that is from somewhere beyond your property line. So that's one criteria, and that applies 10 p.m. to 7 a.m.
Now, does that apply resident to resident? So if a resident's having a fire outside and has a boombox playing,
I'm the chief, but I think
it did. Last time we talked about it, I didn't think it did, but.
No, it did. It's always covered there.
Okay.
It doesn't say otherwise.
Okay.
You're not going to talk to for just people talking inside too loud.
Yeah. So that's one way you can run afoul of the ordinance. The other way you can run afoul of it, and most of you are familiar, we've had this for a long time, if you exceed certain decibel levels as measured at the property line I believe, of the property that's hearing the sound. And there are different standards for residential and business and other zones. And then we did, I believe, put a provision in here, it's business to residential. There's the standard there as well, which appears in one of the columns. So there's a good old dB reading, daytime or nighttime with actual reading. Then there's a third standard, and this has been used, I think, for a couple of citations that have been made in the case of this business, and that's provision D on page 3, or page 4 of the packet. And that's vibration from excessive sound generation. And this one isn't limited to like music or amplified sound. This could be construction noise, it could be a stamping machine in the factory down the block. It was quite a few years ago. I know we had some issues with metalware, put some presses in. This one is just generally if there are vibrations, although it does tie in this case to excessive sound generation. And that again is within a residential property. If but there's vibration to structural components, walls, glass, windows, or doors of a resident, or vibrations to personal property contents of a residence that are occurring beyond the lot line, the source of the vibration, which would unreasonably disturb or unduly annoy occupants. And that's detectable either by visual observation, you see something shaking, touch, or secondary audible noise. The personal property is resonating or humming or vibrating. So that's another criteria. That applies 24/7. So the vibration standard is, correct me if I'm wrong, Chief, is 24/7. The clearly audible within a residential property is prohibited 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. And then you've got the decibel readings as well. I believe the standard for a complaint about noise or vibration within a residence basically has to be complaint driven, and the officer obviously needs the ability to go inside that house and experience what's happening. The dB readings can be done independent of that. So I'll throw that out there. We also included an excerpt from the beer garden ordinance.
Just a correction on that.
Please.
Just the audible is, it has to be heard plainly audible by an officer.
Okay, the vibration,
Vibrations, not necessarily.
okay.
That doesn't list that.
They don't have to witness it. No.
No, not according to ordinance.
Okay. In
I mean,
practice.
obviously it helps if you just like any other investigation, but
So, and am I correct, there have been citations that weren't, I guess the point here was that it don't necessarily happen at night, but if there's vibration detectable during the day, there can be a citation. I think there have been.
there have been officers witnessed it and actually verified.
So we do have some different standards. One, this is not a staff recommendation at this point, but one idea that came up could be the issue of vibration that you can hear or feel fall within the same hours as the sound restriction, in other words, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. But we just toss that up for discussion. The other thing is there are some different rules on beer gardens. You may recall this language is pretty fresh too on page 6 of 8. Amplified sound is only allowed, is not permitted after 9 p.m. in a beer garden, except until 10 o'clock from the Friday before Memorial Day to the Friday, whenever, till Labor Day. So basically for the summer season, it's not 9 o'clock, it's 10 o'clock. And then the month before Labor Day and the month after, the 2 months after Labor Day, it's allowed till 10 o'clock on weekends, Friday nights, Saturday nights. So there was some question there, at least among staff, as, you know, for all of these, would it make any sense to look at 11 p.m.? The council deals with a lot of waivers for special events music until 11. Those are almost always on weekends. I know there are some residents that wouldn't like that, but in the summer, on that issue, would it be unreasonable to just generally expect music cuts off at 11, not 10? In all my time here, I've never seen the council deny one of those requests. It would sure reduce the number of requests for waivers substantially. So that's my comments, but this is the guy whose agency enforces the ordinance.
Yeah, I would just say, I wasn't advocating at all for, or supporting at all, really any change as far as the noise ordinance, based on the fact that The last time this came up, we did a great deal of research. We tried to come up with, basically a lock stock, no question answer to it. We tried different frequency level readings. We did a bunch of testing with Whiskey D's and with the citizens. We came to what we thought was the best conclusion, which is what we have here. And in essence, some of the history on that is at the time, Whiskey D's was getting a lot of anonymous reports. So what would happen is officers would respond, and I would agree with them in that they felt somewhat harassed that any Tom, Dick, or Harry could call up with an anonymous complaint. Now we have officers going into the business, which doesn't look good for any business when police are showing up nonstop. So we were looking for an answer to that. Hence, that's where the portion where violations had to require a verification. So you can't just call in anonymously and expect that we're gonna automatically respond to the said business and investigate. That's not to say you couldn't call anonymously, but that would be handled differently. So if somebody called anonymously, officers would still investigate, but they wouldn't just automatically go over to their business and speak to them about turning music down if there wasn't necessarily a violation. So what was supposed to happen and what should happen is that if somebody calls anonymously and they don't want to make a report, they don't want to give their name, they don't want to do any of that, then basically they have to follow the rule which is set forth in the ordinance that they go to the closest property line, they listen, they check decibel levels. If it's not in violation, they don't even respond to the details. So that would take care of that problem. Now, that's not to say that happened every time. There were officer mistakes, obviously, and we had spoken to them about that. But that's how it's supposed to be planned. So now if they don't want to be anonymous and they do want to file a complaint, a couple of things had to happen. Officers would verify that, yes, they wanted to be a named complainant, which means when it goes to court, they have to go to court. So that's a big deal. It had to allow them to invite the officer into their home to witness it. And it had to be an enclosed building, basically an enclosed home. It doesn't have like an open window. It doesn't have an air conditioning unit or something that's allowing that noise to emanate. It had to be, the idea was a fully enclosed, structured, properly home. With the reasonableness, that somebody shouldn't have to listen to a bunch of noise outside their property. And again, after that set time period. And then the officer finally had to verify that the noise was coming from said location. So if that was all in place, then a citation was to be issued. We looked at this as, with all the complaints we had, both Whiskey D's and other businesses and residents, that this was supposed to be cut and dry, no wiggle room. This is how you handle these noise complaints. Thought that was very, that took care of a lot of those issues that were going on at the time. We also looked at what was unique with Whiskey D's was they were one of the few places that had residential right across from business. So they're actually in business, but the complaints are coming from residential, where the old way of looking at it was you would have to take, if they were complaining on the resident side, you would have to go from that resident's decibel level, which was much smaller than what you would have over on the business side. The business was always 70. The residence was either 60 or 50 after 10 o'clock. So what this did was it kind of cut that distance. So it gave 65 and 60. And then the vibrations, that was already in the ordinance to begin with.
And like you pointed out, I'm sorry to catch that away. There's nothing saying that violations of the vibrations section require verification by the officer and an identified complainant. But how would you?
I'm sorry.
How, it doesn't require.
So the vibrations was always in there, but
Right.
again, if you're calling in and you're claiming the vibrations, but you're not allowing the officer to witness it, then we weren't writing citations for that. So that one wasn't working for those people at the time. But what was still happening was you could call up and complain that it's vibrating your windows and whatnot, and now officers would respond over and ask said bar to turn the radio down. But again, anybody could do that, so we were trying to get away from that. If you recall back when we had those complaints, they were getting inundated with complaints at that time. those complaints have since ceased the minute this one took place because one of those certain complainants didn't want to allow anybody into their home and didn't want to be named complainant.
Have we written citations though under the vibration provision for
We
this?
had, yep, we had one that was written, I think the last one, a couple months ago was written for that. And I think they had 2 prior, probably a year and a half time period.
So while the ordinance doesn't require the officer to go inside the home, you'd almost have to validate that was being experienced inside the home.
Vibration?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna write a citation, you have to actually see that or have a named complainant, it's gonna go to court and try to explain that or have proof of it or something along those lines.
I just, the language isn't there, but they operate the same if it gets to the point of a citation. You're not gonna do it without the officer observing it.
I think it would be prudent for us to kind of put the noise and the so-called vibration base kind of in the same category.
If I could just interrupt. Yep. Sorry. The one thing, so leading off, I'm saying, you know, that I wasn't advocating or supporting because we did a lot of stuff here. But we did have a meeting with Whiskey Bees. I asked Greg to add in the beer garden because I think they go hand in hand. And I don't really care what the council decides here. I would hope that you take into account the residents and stuff that we also did research with, as well as the tavern owners in your decision. And I could see that there could be wiggle room. All I'm asking is that when you do make that decision, I think you need to take in the beer garden portion of it too, and really make this consistent across the board. I agree with you, vibration should be consistent probably with the noise, especially when you're talking about time. And I also think that when you're talking about noise, the beer gardens kind of play into that. And the one thing that I did agree with when we had those meetings was the city has a lot of events. And I think what the city kind of envisions is that you'd have kind of an outpouring of business year round in like a city park that we have here at Central Park. So if that's the case, you can probably hear that throughout the whole city. So if you can hear that throughout the whole city, then, you know, would it be consistent to allow you to still hear that same kind of stuff coming from businesses? You know, I think there's a few business owners in here, and I think you could agree. So I'm not against that. I just think that it needs to be consistent across the board, and whatever is decided, it will remain a black and white thing, because there's too much contention with this noise thing, that our officers will enforce it no matter how it's ruled to a T.
Which we have to. I agree, we should. When we have an ordinance on the book, it has to go in accordance. It can't be special for person A versus person B, because obviously that's not how we govern a city or anyone should govern a city. But I agree, I think they should go hand in hand. Noise and the vibration should go hand in hand at the set time. I didn't do a ton of research on it, but it looks like there is a base meter out there, a pro edition, that looks like it could be pretty good. I don't know what it costs, but we should maybe look into that and try to get some understanding of a good level that we should have Whiskey D's or any said business be at that level, and try to make it so that it's comfortable for the residents that are across the river. I know there's a resident that has complaints about it. I know there's a couple that don't mind it and actually like it. So I mean, it's you have two different kinds of residents at the same time. One that's very no, and that's their right, and then you got some that actually kind of enjoy it and enjoy hearing that noise. And sometimes they may be having a summer fire or whatever and actually enjoy the noise. Not helping Whiskey D's by going there, but they're feeding off the music that they have over there too, even though it's probably not terribly loud, but it would be nice for those to go hand in hand, and it would be nice to kind of figure out the base, and if we got to buy some kind of a base meter, to try to figure that out, to get it the base at a reasonable level for residents, but yet be respectful of business. I think that would be.
I will say that I think with base meter, or however you want to look at it, because it's not always just base either. The problem is we did look at numerous different frequencies. We bought different contraptions to measure that, and there's so many variables that play into that. There's really no answer. You know, I've heard everything from The river, changes how that is affected, whether it's frozen or whether it's water, whether it's wavy or whether it's not. You can talk about the air. There's numerous things.
So how can
we
we,
had super knowledgeable people in here that couldn't provide us answers. The closest we looked at was Monticello, Virginia. Was almost a duplicate of Two Rivers. And I mean, a lot of news about the noise issues and everything else, and they really never came to a conclusion on it. So we're not alone. I talked at our Wisconsin Chiefs of Police Conference with probably about 10 different chiefs. There were a couple different ordinance things that are currently being disputed, and half of those were noise. And nobody really has an answer. It's really kind of up to the community and the people and the times as to what you do for a business. These things are ever changing.
well, seeing we can't control everyday conditions, because those can be different from day to day and time of year, it'd be nice maybe to come up with a number that's reasonable, that no matter what, that's what we stay at, so that they can maybe have a meter put in at their place, and they can say, hey, the number's 65, and on said day, if it's super windy, might it be more going across the river? That might be.
But you're talking about different things here. So communities do that where they hold them to a decibel reading. But that's only measuring that noise frequency, not the bass frequencies and stuff.
Right, but there's
But-
a base meter too.
I know, and that's what I'm telling you is that we did look into that and we were running that. And I think it was like a C scale, and there was also a C something other scale that we were also testing quite frequently. And it was really giving us no readings. We were trying. We had the meter downstairs that can give it to you and you can play with it, but it really did us no good. And everybody that we talked to, we still had those issues. And then even if they did have a certain base reading that they could measure, and I know we worked with Austin and Dylan at the time too with their base equipment, and they were able to set like governors and stuff on that. And we used those same meters at the time, and it did us no good really. The only thing that we could really positively test accurately was the decibel, because there's so many different variations of that vibrating frequencies that's where we're having issues.
So you're telling me that, and I'm just asking,
No,
that a low frequency noise such as bass, there's no way to set their equipment to give out a number of X at the business to make sure it's
So
not
they-
vibrating there.
They did have the equipment available to set their equipment to whatever. What that did was it kept that going. What I'm saying is, that doesn't change the fact that if they adjusted that, we have no way of really measuring that on the other end. Or that it would be the same type of vibration frequency. The actual noise, we could definitely get the decibel.
There's wall-mounted meters, you could have it on just for a particular event. It doesn't have to go for a very long time. Just kind of like you can have constant readings for like temperature, just different things. And that would give, if it's capturing the data and somebody has complained and the officer goes inside and you guys would say, hey, look, this is, and here's another thing, if you know how it's set inside, you have a pretty good idea as to what's going to travel through to the outside. So if you figure out where the problem starts, look at what is causing it. All right, you should be able to read it from the interior. That would give you some, some teeth.
Is this sound you're talking or vibration?
It's
You can
sound.
measure both. I've seen the same thing
Right,
she's talking.
but they got different meters. Some are for reeds, some are for brass. I mean, there's a multitude of meters out there. I just think, what I'm trying to say is that I think if you have a wall-mounted unit, it's gonna be consistent because it's gonna be the same location every single time. You just run it for that night, because you're not having bands every single night.
We would love to, but we can't afford to.
Right. But I would do that because then you could show the officer, hey, look, you know, and as far as if you're outside, that's a tricky one. Adam, you were talking about the wind. Well, we've got no control over that. One question I have for you is outside, do you guys have landscape screening around the perimeter? I would definitely look into that, because if you have bushes or like cedars that are close to each other, that is gonna be such a sound dampener for getting outside of like your beer garden.
So a couple of things. One, I would like to say that they did a ton of work to make adjustments. They put up different soundproofing things. They did different things. We also did the testing where when they did set the equipment to a certain level, it was unbearably, I can quote it, it was unbearably loud for a lieutenant sitting inside the enclosed Whiskey D's.
Okay,
And I was at a residence across the river inside, fully enclosed, and I couldn't hear it. So we know that it's capable of being done. I also know that just a little bit that, say, a door would open at times towards the river, then all of a sudden you could hear it, or you could get some vibration. You know, and I know they were working with their staff and reconfiguring and doing everything that they could do. And the reality of this is since then, we've had, 3 tickets in a few years for your establishment. So I would say it's actually.
But I know it's been 3 in the last couple of months, I'll say that.
I don't think it was 3 in the last couple of months.
I have 3 tickets I'm going to court for.
Well, right, but one of those was stayed for a full year.
Yes, that one was
Right.
stayed, and I
So
think that goes in January, but yeah, this year I've probably gotten
So like I said, a year and a half, there was 3.
3, this year, 3. Well, 2, yeah, okay.
A year and a
But
half,
it's
3,
still the-
3 incidents. So I don't
Still.
think that it's a problem. Well, I'm just saying, I understand your perception, but I'm saying what reality is there's been 3 times where it was happening several times every week that you guys were having contacts. or
2
we were
which
getting
were the
calls.
daytime, I believe.
Were
One
these-
was at night, 2 were in the day.
were these, are there more complaints when the beer garden is open and you have music outside, or are you getting the same amount of complaints when it's music coming from the inside?
To be quite frank, I think it depends on their personality. I mean, what
Okay,
kind of
so
day
it's
this
both.
person's having.
Mhm.
Depends on
Yes, both.
when I'm gonna get a ticket. If he's having a
There
bad
was
day, I'm
one,
probably
there
gonna
was
get a
one
ticket.
that I think was the vibration thing. That was more of like a 3, 4 in the afternoon type thing, I think.
2 o'clock.
I-
2
I'm
o'clock.
just throwing it out. Either way, it was daytime.
Right.
And I think the other ones were nighttime. I believe.
The,
So a variety.
I can't remember. Yeah. One was nighttime, but I think that's.
So
One was day because I questioned the band that we
Yeah.
had a band at the same time, but it was at like 4:30 start
Mhm.
at the beach, and I wanna say that was in August.
There was a Branch River band we had them play, from 3 to 7.
Nope, it
Yes,
was 2 to 6
It
or
was,
something.
it was 3 to 7 because we got called
2:45,
3:45.
2:45.
I would agree. I think it was closer to 4.
I think it was 3:45 was the time on the citation.
They called 45 minutes after the band started,
Right.
and I got a call at 10 o'clock at night. I get that they're busy.
And I'm not here
Believe
to
me.
argue the details. I'm
But,
just saying
right,
that
I'm just
this-
saying.
This is pretty much the facts. One was during the day and dealt with vibrations. The other 2 were noise and were at nighttime. From my
So the noise we can measure with our decibel meters, correct?
Correct.
You don't need to go inside anyone's house. So that can be easily solved
Well,
if you can
well,
get a
no,
decibel meter within.
Well, the noise is the hearing from inside a residence.
Doesn't have
Good.
anything to do with the decibel then, if you hear it
So we're
inside.
still doing that
Correct.
too?
Yes.
Correct. If there's a named complainant, because that person is then going to court to argue that, is that you have the noise that's, however it's described in here. But then an officer is invited into the house, it's fully enclosed, verifies that, then yes, you could have a second.
So even though they have a business and they
But
have
after those
70,
time- But after those time periods.
so from 10 to 7, 10 PM to 7 AM, they have a decibel reading of 70. So even if it's at 65, but you
Well,
can hear it in the house.
after 10 o'clock,
Ticket?
after 10 o'clock, they would have a 65. After 10 o'clock, they have a 65 reading because it's happening between residential and business.
I
We're
thought it
talking about
changed.
something.
Okay, business to residential.
And then it's gotta be after 10 o'clock. So then if they're still able to plainly audibly hear it and it's annoying whatever else is in there, and they call and an officer comes inside in an enclosed place and verifies that it's plainly audible and they wanna be a named complainant, then yes, they would get a citation.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
How loud does being able to hear, is it a faint sound that you can hear, or
It's
is
just
it that
plainly
you
audible.
can,
Plainly audible.
so
So
it's
that I can
plainly
plainly
audible
hear that.
faint? Or it's, I'm just curious what that is,
Yeah.
because I don't know what that is, what, like,
That would be an argument. I would say if I can plainly hear music, clear, I can make that out. I think I would argue that that's plainly audible.
okay.
So then
Would that be like the words of the song, or would that just be like?
Again, that's something that we're here to discuss, if you guys wanna change the wording, but I think we all.
I'm just curious what faintly audible means, because I've gotten a
Well,
ticket for, I'm not,
Faintly audible is a different story, and that's something that's gonna be talked about in your court case.
I-
That's not
I-
for discussion here.
I'm not asking for that to be discussed here, I'm asking if somebody complains, what is?
I would say faintly audible is different than plainly audible, and plainly audible is what is in our ordinance.
Okay,
I
So-
think I've had this discussion with you.
So then we can pretty much throw out the decibel readings from 10 to 7.
Okay.
Because it doesn't really matter,
you
because
can't.
you can
No,
faintly
you
hear
can't.
it.
Okay, you can't throw them out, because now if somebody would report it anonymously, we still have to investigate anonymous complaints, I have to. So if I can't go inside a residence, well, then what I have to do is I have to go to that lot line, and then I have to take a decibel reading, just like you always used to have to. And then if it's not in violation, then I don't go, it's a close call. If it is in violation, then I would be reading a citation.
To me, that should be the same, because how can they know? They should be able to have a decibel reader inside their building that lets them know that, hey,
If you could.
I'm above 60. And that's it. But right now, that they could be at 60 legally in their building, but if you have a named complainant and you go into that residence and you can hear it, they get a citation, even though they have a meter installed and they're at what the business to residential is for that time period. That's what I don't like.
So what are you suggesting?
That we stick to the decibel rating, even if it's a named complaint that you go in the house and you can hear it. It should still have to be a decibel reading.
But then where's the decibel reading coming from?
It would have to come from the lot line.
whose lot line?
It'd have to come from theirs.
different.
My lot line?
No,
That's
it'd
never happened.
come from their lot line,
From their list?
your lot line,
Okay, so.
on the named complainant.
According to the ordinance, you go
Because it's
to the
from
properties.
business to
Well,
residential.
I'll just say that that's how it was. However, you changed that because of all the complaining a couple of years back to take care of what was the issue, is that people were still hearing continuous nonstop annoying noise and music and everything else from within their houses, even though maybe it wasn't over the decibel reading. So that's the issue that you guys are dealing with.
Right, I'm just saying, but how is that fair to them? If they're trying to keep it under what this is, let's say they had a meter inside their building, which I would recommend that they do, and they were sitting there and it says 60 the whole time, and then
Okay, but I guess arguing, I'll go back to the fact that we did testing. It was unbearably loud within the business for an officer, a young officer. This isn't like an old guy like me sitting in there saying this is too loud. This was unbearable for an officer. They all agreed, and I could not hear it within a building across the river, inside an enclosed structure.
how are we hearing it?
That's just it. And we have only on 3 occasions that there were citations.
I'm gonna go to Tracy, I think your hand is up.
Well, I like having something measurable because it clearly delineates what is and what isn't. Where we're measuring seems to be the issue, right?
No, because if you can hear it inside the building, you don't have to measure then. They don't have to take a measurement.
Well, they're gonna hear it in their own building.
Right, but the name complainant,
The
if,
complainant, I like the idea of them having to not be anonymous, because somebody may just not like their business and wanna call up every
Right.
single night whether there's something playing or not, and that's not right.
I agree.
We've had that.
I can't see worth a damn, but my hearing is so good that when they have the fishing derby and such over there on the beach lake, I can hear everything clearly. I can sing along. And I live up on 34th and Parkway. And so everybody's gonna be different. By using an instrument, we have something that's a little more objective, and you have less complaints when you do it inside the home, because people have to
Let you in.
have some skin in the game then, not just hiding behind it.
The
Whatever.
problem though was, and again, I was at these like so-called town hall meetings where we had, 40 residents that were up here literally in tears because they had the annoying noises, the thumping, the music or whatever else that doesn't necessarily measure, and we had no way to measure. And again, because of all those variables, and that's why these changes were made. So
You're not
that's-
adhering to this on page 2 or page 3?
which part?
It's the decibel readings, the parameter, the limits.
They do unless it's a main complaint, then it goes to if they
If you
can
can hear it or not.
inside the house. Even, it could be under those decibels, but if they hear it inside the house, you get a ticket.
So that's where the plainly audible part came in.
Yep.
Because we couldn't.
I got
get
Bill
around it
first.
Because we couldn't find a way to measure that vibration and the feeling and the thumping and the different frequencies that everybody was claiming for a variety of reasons. But in no way could we come up with some way to literally test that. And I will say that I've worked at other places. Everywhere I've worked, there's been issues with noise and how do you govern this? So this isn't a unique thing. This is something that you gotta come up with something. I worked at places where it was strictly, if you had 2 complainants, they got a ticket automatically and they went to the court. That was plain and simple. So you could have a husband and wife that wanted to complain at the same time and then a ticket. I thought that was unreasonable, but that's how it was there. Manitowoc had kind of a loose noise issue and enforcement, from my understanding, but now they're also facing a lot of complaints over the wharf, for instance. I know down in Milwaukee, they got an issue with a large sports complex that now they're dealing with all sorts of issues. There's things statewide, I can tell you a number of them. The one that we were talking about is, I think we can agree when you're looking at some of the stuff, whether it's Hamilton or Central Park, you're looking at having kind of an entertainment type district. You're gonna have to adjust the ordinance as you go there, because I don't think you can have a bunch of, nice businesses, events, all kinds of stuff coming into town and hinder it if you have not adjusted your ordinance.
Bill?
So the biggest complaint here with this situation was the vibration across the river, right?
Portion
The
of it.
pictures and everything, clocks and stuff, everything's shaking on the wall.
Not so much, it was numerous things, it wasn't just vibration, because we already had vibration in there, but that wasn't always visible.
But that wasn't
Or always
wasn't
felt.
that the majority of the problem?
No, a lot of it was, whether it was the bass, the thumping, the music, it was a variety of things, and kind of unmeasurable things.
So it's the plainly audible category.
Yeah. From my understanding, it was one time on the base. Chief could correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought it was one time on.
I think we had
As far as,
people
well,
here that complained about, they came to our meetings and they complained about it for
well,
going on for a long time, shaking off everything in the house.
correct, and I don't want to name calling here or anything, but I will say since Dina, I'm sorry, I was gonna screw it up, I was trying to correct myself ahead of time. Dina and Lee were there and running the place. We have not had issues other than those 3. So again, I would say that was a win. We don't get calls there anywhere close to what we did.
So your suggestion is to keep everything the same?
Well, I'm saying My suggestion is I'm not advocating for change because of all the stuff that we already put footwork wise.
Right.
I guess if I was open to any change, it would be something similar to like what you did with the beer garden ordinance, when you guys made changes to say like Memorial Day to Labor Day, making a little bit more leniency, because I think in the grand scheme, now that we, I brought up for instance, let's say ice skating in the park, something as simple as that, where now we have Christmas music maybe playing until 11 o'clock. Would that be any different than if you can hear some music playing from a tavern until 11 o'clock on a Friday or Saturday? I don't know. Those are questions that I'm asking you and what you want for the focus of the city. What I will do is I'll enforce it, black and white. But I think those changes, what I'm asking for is that you take some of those considerations, because I don't want to keep coming back every year with the same ordinance and have to make changes. But I think something more like, maybe a little bit later in the summertime, from Labor Day to Memorial Day would be a good idea. Maybe not on the weekdays because people still work, but definitely in kind of the hustle and bustle of the summer. I think people expect that on a Friday night, Saturday night, they want to listen to music in a nice hot summer day. I think that would be important. And then if you're gonna do that, I just ask that you make it consistent with beer garden, with vibration, with noise. I think it's all about the same. Because really vibrations, we've all learned through all the research too, it's really sound. It's just different levels of sound.
Jeff?
One thing I will say is like, when I used to DJ there a lot, in the past, when most of the complaints were coming in, it almost seemed that, the police were like willing to work with us more and like let us know, hey, this is the problem, can you turn it down? Which we always did, and then it kind of eliminated the problem for the rest of the night. And then it seems that as, things progress, we have less complaints, but there's none of the, consideration also for letting us know it's a problem, And I think that if that would be the case, we could then try to do something to, fix it, rather than, well, we didn't know it was a problem, then we're just getting citations, so.
Well, I guess I'll answer that. I think the problem was that it was getting abused by people running it at that time. And that's why it got to the point that, no, this is going to be black and white and that's it. That's what happened there. And I will stand by that. Because it got to the point where we are not going to waiver for neither the residents nor the bar owners. We are going to handle this black and white. There's not going to be any in between. And it actually played in the favor of the taverns because, again, we were getting complaints that were harassing customers. So every single time we come over there for any sort of complaint, whether it was legit or not, well, now it's like we're harassing because now we're coming over there and nobody likes cops at a tavern, let's be honest, at any time of day. That's not going to keep a lot of customers there. So the reason that was put in place is that if it was a BS complaint, we weren't going to show up because I feel that is harassment. And at the same time, on the other side, it was the same deal. Like, we're not going to entertain your complaint if you're not going to invite us in and let us witness this to make sure that it's a violation.
Jeff, and then I saw Darrell.
I'm with you, Adam, on your decibel level shouldn't have to be right at the lot line on an anonymous complaint. I mean, if you give a complaint, you don't have to give your house number, at least in the street, but you got somewhere to listen from, Otherwise.
Well, you bring up a good point, because that was one of the issues. So if we get an anonymous complaint and we don't know where it's coming from, then we still had to go from a residential side. And in which case, where is that? It's kind of just left up to the closest one. And when you're talking across the river, maybe, where's that closest lot line? Or is it the residence that's just to the north of Whiskey D's? Basically a block off.
Right.
Because then that's not fair to them either.
Because I mean, if somebody, all I gotta do is give a street, I mean, you don't have to give an address, you just give it a street, check it from various points at a street. Even the closest point between A and B.
The problem you'll run into though is if you want a anonymous complainant and you're forcing them to give up information, then you can't really be anonymous with giving up information. I'm just telling you that from a record standpoint.
And if it is anonymous, I think that there should be somewhat of a buffer on there too, plus or minus. Because who knows, if it's normally 60, well, if you're always 70.
If it's anonymous, do you go from the property lot line of Whiskey D's?
Actually, it plays in our favor because then it's going from Whiskey D's lot, so it's going from the set.
Going from there.
So it's already into the benefit.
So it's the industrial standard.
Two things. First of all, are you a co-owner?
Yes.
Okay, what's your name?
Boston.
Okay. And then if things have improved and you're not getting as many tickets, I don't understand, why are we here tonight? Is there something that drove this to be discussed again?
I had asked, I had talked to Adam. We got together with, I wanna call him the mayor, Greg, and not about something, like even the daytime. I feel that, you know, we're at a lose-lose. I almost don't wanna be in business in Two Rivers anymore. It's so hard, I believe we should, in my heart, be more loose-lipped, like Manitowoc. They're making money hand over fist with all of their entertainment. They close down the streets, they do this, they do that. We can't do that in Two Rivers, at least I can't. Other people can in Two Rivers, I just know I can't. I get a ticket every time the toilet flushes sideways. That's how I feel. I feel that it's almost not worth trying to start a business or have one in Two Rivers if you're constantly harassed, not as much anymore, I will say, or ticketed. I agree that there should be an ordinance with noise, but I feel I should, along with Peach and every other person that owns a business, be able to do within a reason stuff during the day even. Like, one person singing at night should not be vibrating somebody's windows during the day, I should say. It's insane to me. Traffic rattles windows. Lawnmowers rattle windows. I don't call the police on them. We have a business behind us with the fan. It rattles inside our business.
Especially every time they dump or other contractor.
Yeah, in the middle of the night. It's a business to run. If we wanted an old folks home here in Two Rivers, then I get it. But if you want the new up and coming people coming up to Door County, you're allowing the beach to have theirs. That's Beach Bash, and then there's across the street here, which I can hear at my house. It's not fair. It's not fair.
You know, and definitely we don't wanna lose you as a business owner, but I can see exactly how you would feel.
I feel that because when we started the whole ordinance, I don't think it was off of Peach's Bar, and I don't think it was off of the Waverly. It was focused on Whiskey D's, which was awful. It was terrible, terrible, terrible.
You know, another problem too is that a lot of it's subjective. You know, what is faint? What is, normal level? A lot of this, like you said, you can't measure it.
Exactly.
So
I know the person before us, they didn't have a business. They didn't have music. Chad Blish, who had Chatterbox, the original, he left because of this same issue. He is my ex-brother-in-law. I know this for a fact. With the complaints and it's, to me, not worth it. It's not worth continuing to put my time and energy, our own money, into a business for a building that we lease. We've improved this place. We have tried so many things. I will not put big trees in front of the river where people come up and dock, and it's awesome there in the
well, you
summer.
can trim them up.
Even still, they're.
I'm just saying, there's ways to do this to dampen. It's not gonna really be.
The ways to dampen it is to let people have a good time. Like, I shouldn't be getting a ticket at 2:45 in the afternoon when the house across the street at 11 o'clock at night is still doing karaoke and the guy complaining doesn't even complain. It drives me crazy. Like, I have people come to us and say, please, can you talk to whomever, because we don't want you shut down.
Correct.
I just don't know what to do anymore, and I just don't really know if it's worth it.
We're gonna go Greg and then Bonnie.
Obviously,
I'm
council
sorry.
serves different constituencies. We we bring up change, there'll be another constituency that shows up that aren't, respectfully, that aren't business owners. And face it, you guys run into it all the time. People will will use city government to further their own ends. And if it's on the books, the good people we have in uniform enforcing our ordinances don't have a choice. So, I don't know about harassment of businesses. I'm not gonna go there. I don't think that's certainly happened with any intent by any of our departments for a minute. But I'll just ask the question, do we wanna have more music? Do we wanna have more outdoor entertainment venues? Certainly when the weather allows, which won't be later tonight by the sound of it. But do we wanna see more of that, not less? Do we want, within reason? And would it, I'm just gonna throw something out there, see if it sticks. Would it make sense to, for starters, say, at least on weekends, maybe year round, that means Friday, Saturday nights, or at least on weekends, May through September, May through October, maybe the magic witching hour is 11 o'clock, not 10 o'clock. That would take away probably 6 or 7 waiver requests per year the council has. And I think, most people can deal with some noise on the weekend up until 11 o'clock. Maybe for consistency, because there just may be that point where regardless of what the decibel reading says, you want to basically say somebody's got a right to peace and quiet in their home. If the officer can hear it or feel it vibrating or hold their hand against the glass and feel it vibrating, that's a problem. Why not make that a time of day problem after 11 o'clock at night too? So I believe the decibel change, is that a 10 or 11?
It's a 10.
10. Make the whole damn thing 11 is what I'm suggesting. But with the noise and vibration standards, getting away from the DB, make that only on weekends, unless you want to open it up, or maybe it's all week in the summer. But that vibration one can really get you. I mean, a car, somebody with a boombox in their car going down the street will rather. The outdoor power equipment will.
I think that one gets me because I don't know how that can be proved, that you felt something or didn't feel something though either. You know what I'm saying? Like at least with the decibel reader, like that can be proven, it's scientific. That makes sense, but kind of where I stand on this, at least opinion wise, is I really don't like it, obviously, because I don't think that anyone could prove that they felt anything. So I think that's a problem that also should be looked at, you know what I mean?
But if your music is shut down at 11, ain't nobody gonna hear it. They can't say it's just a count at that point. Excuse me.
Bonnie, then Tim. Bonnie.
I've seen your backyard. I came and visited you once, and it was very beautiful. I think it looks very nice. And what is the name of that one in Manitowoc? The Wharf? The Wharf. I know that they can be heard like across the river and 3 more blocks down. But they shut off at 10 o'clock. I don't know what they do. I don't know if they quit their band or they go inside or whatever they do. Apparently the noise goes down. Maybe the person across the river could put up a barrier so he doesn't hear the noise. I just, maybe there could be a compromise or something. That's really all I have to say. I do sympathize with them because they're trying to make a business and anyway.
Tim.
For vibration, if a person were to put their subs on a riser, I know that helps. That's the reason why drums are on risers and stuff to just putting it up there. And I understand what you're saying. That's why I don't have bands outside. It's like what direction do I point the band in on?
Right.
So I get stuck having them inside the one time every 10 years that I may have one with the AC on, with the skylights open so that no sound goes out the doors and just straight up.
I know we would like to try and add on, we've talked about adding on to the building and putting soundproof everything in the building on the water side, which is the west side, right? To, see if something like that would work. I would also like to expand the beer garden so I'm able to use our yard, for games, or I don't want somebody to be upset if they're using binoculars, seeing somebody cross the line with an alcohol beverage, you know? It happens, and I get it that we are babysitters when you own a business like this, but to be able to use your property is, you know, is all that we would like to do, you know, I don't know, I purchased a tent, so maybe the music can go a different way, I just don't know what else to do. Old people love coming there as well, outside, to listen to it. I think you've been there, listening, you know. I was gonna say something different, I didn't mean it like that.
The
But
old
I mean,
person you.
Jeff, do they have a blue plate session?
You can verify the elderly people and the disabled people and people like that love to come and listen to this music. I didn't mean you're old.
All right, Tracy had her hands up.
I agree with extending the time to 11 because we do get a lot of those waivers. And not just for the summer, but yeah, 11 o'clock, that's not unreasonable because I think don't most of the bars close like midnight or something around here?
In the summer,
Yeah.
2 o'clock during the
2 is
weekend,
close.
2:30 on the weekend, but
Yep.
we don't have music that
Well,
late.
no.
And I would never want to disrespect you because I know that you have put a lot of time. We've talked way too many times. And I thank you for doing all of that. But I would hope no one else would either, have this obscene music on nights that kids are going to school, or I just think that's crazy. You know, the summer, I think would be a little different, but I would never even on a Tuesday or Wednesday have music late at night ever, because people have to get up for work.
Yeah.
And their kids have to go to summer school, daycare, whatever. I would be very upset if it were my household listening to that.
Not to mention, it's probably not cost effective to have a band play on a Tuesday night.
Sometimes, no, it's.
I know, I think twice about it.
Jeff.
I agree with the 11 o'clock completely, I mean.
Yeah.
But part of this too is, there's gotta be some targeting going on here, because how is it that you never get any complaints from bands at the beach or from the park?
Well, we get complaints from bands at the beach, but they got permission to do so.
Because they applied for the waiver.
Right, okay, but then 11 o'clock, but you're still getting complaints before the times are up too.
Every
That's what I mean.
every city then gets complaints, but there's nothing that can be done because they are permitted.
Well, you're not
That's
talking
not
about,
right either.
are you talking about just beach bash or the bands that are actually on the beach?
Every band on the beach, beach bash, anything where we
I'm
have.
saying anything that's got the permit, like, we still get complaints about that. We do.
But there's nothing you can do because that's.
Correct.
I mean, the city sponsored bands on the beach don't go. They're special events,
They're permitted.
usually with the council blessing. And we don't want to get in this game of, I don't think you want to get in this game of, you know, giving 6, 7 waivers a year to
But you know what I mean?
bars.
They're still getting the complaints within the time frame that's allowed. And none of the other events are having that kind of issue. With or without the
I
permit,
hear what you're saying.
and that's not right. Because I know you guys are no louder than the bands on the beach, or when you have your events down there. Because I hear it coming down the river.
For the fish
It is,
derby.
you are no louder than anybody else in town is.
Roger Street? Roger
Yep.
Street Fish Derby,
Right.
yeah.
Yes, whatever they do up here,
Salute
Park,
Fest,
Central Park.
Thursday night concerts,
And which I think they're all great.
Latino Fest.
I would like to get somebody to work so I can go to all this. You know, it's.
Okay, so kind of what I have here now is May through September, we're looking at 11 PM Friday to Saturday. Are we then gonna go 10 for the rest of the year, October to April on Friday and Saturday? Are we gonna,
Well, isn't that what
Why don't
it
we
is
just
now?
make it
I think it's 9.
11 across the
I
board?
think it's 10 in summer, 9 in winter, I believe.
For the big restaurants in the world.
Beer garden was at an hour earlier than the.
Yeah.
Easiest.
So,
It's not after 9, except 10 o'clock from.
Yeah.
Memorial Day to Labor Day.
so to make that kosher, would we put that to 10 or would we keep that 9 in the quote unquote winter months of October to April, and then jump 2 hours May through September to 11, or do you wanna go 10? I mean, this is something that we can take up next week, it's just stuff to think about.
Yeah.
And I also think that business to residential, it shouldn't be a faint or noticeable noise, it should be a decibel meter. Is what I would personally like to see, cause then that gives them something to measure off as well. Where then they blatantly would know that, you know, you can put up a decibel meter that has a display. And it can straight up tell you, hey, I'm too high. And at that point, if you don't turn it down, then damn, that's your own fault. I mean, then there's not a whole heck of a lot we can do for you. But at least it's not, yes, they're at 60 and then I can faintly hear it across the river. Because then how are they supposed to know to turn it down? If their decibel meter says exactly what our ordinance says, 60, and you can go over there and hear it, they're still getting a ticket, which they don't know to turn it down.
Decibel reading inside of buildings kind of senseless, because you're probably about 60.
Thank
inside
you.
I'm sorry,
the ordinance.
At the residence.
They'd have to have something set up at a property line so they could see what they're resonating outside.
Yep.
Because inside's always gonna be.
Yep.
Yeah, but the thing is that if it's a certain level inside, it's gonna be less, it's gonna be
Yeah, they
lower.
could have.
So if
they
they've
could
got
test
something that
to
says,
see
okay,
what
we're at 60,
comes out.
it's not gonna be 60 at the street, so you know you're gonna be within that. I'm just saying, something like that, if you could just regulate yourselves and just say, hey, look, we were within, you know, the parameters. But I would do something like that.
So then you're saying, yes, get rid of that faint or noticeable sound inside the residence,
I
like
think that's so subjective, it's like, you might have somebody who had a really bad day and doesn't wanna hear anything, and he's gonna be complaining.
And Tracy had a good example of herself, she's got good hearing, terrible eyes. She said it, not me.
I
But-
got I can't hear.
I
It's
mean,
true, it's
it's
true.
just that there's some people that probably can hear better than others.
Sure.
I can't see or hear, but.
4:30 in the
I
morning,
can't
same guy who's got a souped up car comes down our street.
Yep.
I always hear him.
Chief,
I will say though that
we want you to be involved.
as much as you wanna say that it's so subjective and everything, you're right. But then an officer also has to feel that it's plainly audible and it still has to go to court. So even in that text, it has to go to court and then you have to plead that to a judge and the judge has to decide. So now you have to have 3 people that agree that that was plainly audible for it to be in violation and a break of the ordinance.
I just think it'd be easier if they could install their own decibel reader and keep it below.
Well,
Whatever
so,
that is.
and going back to that too, Austin, and you can, attest to this, is that when we were doing that testing, he was able to govern all his equipment again, so that it was at a stuck level, and we tested that, and he said, yeah, no problem, we'll never have another issue, because I was on the other side of the river when it was uncomfortably loud inside that place, and he had it governed, and I could not hear it plainly audible. I couldn't hear it at all.
But bands bring their own equipment,
Correct,
so
but
that's not.
again, this is what we were talking about, so.
Yeah, so I believe that even that day, actually, we had to open the back doors of the establishment, just so that it would be technically even different, because we're not gonna leave our back doors open on the night where I'm gonna be DJing.
Well, we were opening them.
Oh, yeah,
We were
yeah,
doing all
we
this.
tested so many different ways, but I think what was really crazy, like even when we did that test though, is, you know, we're talking about humongous like subwoofers and stuff like that, like nice DJ equipment. But on there, you know, you can adjust the bass level, stuff that would actually, you know, give more vibration technically than, you know, others. So we tested it in so many different ways. I had it as high as it would possibly go at one point, which I would never run it that way on a normal night. It goes, I believe, went up to 10 level, and I had it at like a 3 or a 4 at all times. Even when we tested it at 10, which is, I mean, it was shaking the inside of the bar. I mean, it was crazy with vibration, and I had it at 10 going across the river though. He was inside, felt no vibration. So I guess now when time continues though, I have a hard time believing though also, when we have a single country singer with a super small amp singing at our beer garden, even inside, that would be enough to
But there were
cause
other,
vibration.
but there were other times where I could hear or see vibration, but I couldn't actually hear what was being played, or whether it was country or rock or anything else, but you could definitely feel it. And that was where the issue came in. And we had no way to measure that. And again, you can go back to, people have all sorts of theories, whether it's the river or the water, or, what number of variables, but we can't do anything about that. So that's where that issue came in.
So would it be enough of a step in the right direction if you left the plainly audible inside a residence, or you can feel it or see it vibrating inside a
And
residence?
that's what I would.
But it applied only after 11 o'clock at night.
And that's what I.
You're still at peril, I guess, or at risk, but how much risk are you?
And I'm not taking anything away from you saying that, that's your perception, is that you're constantly being addressed. But the reality is there's been 3 citations, and only 2 of those in a year and a half. In a year and a half, where we were getting complaints all the time. So I don't feel that there's necessarily an issue at all. And if we extend it, how much of an issue is there gonna be? If we have even a broader amount of music that can be played throughout the city with adjustments that you guys make here with the city council, is that really an issue? I guess that would be the next question.
I'm just going, when I spoke to Manitowoc, and they said what they have done was they had the businesses, and it's one said business, and another one they're looking to do where they're forcing them to put decibel readers in that have a monitor. And it's their job to make sure that it stays under there. If they get called, then they go, they look at that, they take their readings, so on and so forth.
So are we going to start requiring every tavern and every event to have one of those? That's the other problem.
Well, if you have an event and you have a waiver, no. If you have bands, and they don't require everyone to have it. It's one said business, and the next one is coming because they get complaints.
So
They're doing it based on their
back to a
taxes.
targeted business though, which is exactly what she was.
I think we're trying to keep them out of our way by forcing them to do it. Or asking them to do it.
How do you have a waiver outside? If it says 60, I can tell you the 2 businesses that you're talking about, there's no way. I mean, they're totally above 60, 70, 80, whatever it has to be there outside.
Mhm.
Like, I don't get that.
I don't know what Manitowoc's readers are, I don't know. I don't know
Well,
what
I
their
would assume
performance is.
they're
I
similar,
couldn't find it.
but like it,
And the mayor said it's not really plain as day when I spoke to him. It's
Yeah.
not,
I think when you're talking about an enforcement level is the other problem.
They might be trying to avoid it.
they are trying to avoid it, but.
I think I would too if I was bringing, I mean, if there was that much business brought into Manitowoc,
But I think it's also coming to a head for them, that they're gonna have to make investments. Just like a lot of people. Again, these entertainment districts that I'm talking about, that is one of the hot topics, is that people want the hustle and bustle, they want the business coming to their towns. But now they're creating, entertainment businesses where, quite honestly, a lot of other ordinances go out the windows that we were accustomed to as many of us grew up. Those are kind of all going out the windows, and it's becoming a little bit more loose on those things.
We're trying to ride the middle of it, because
Yeah.
obviously we wanna respect the residents, and we wanna certainly encourage and respect the business owners, and it's pretty hard to have success if you can't have some noise, but at the same time, what's too much that the resident can't get to sleep either. I think,
disagree with you.
I think some of these steps, if we do enact them, I think will go a long way to giving you a time, numbers, and it'll give the residents the same thing. So hopefully we can avoid any citations going forward, and we can get them the rest they need. We can get you the business you need and deserve, and hopefully everyone can live happily ever after, quite frankly.
And you stay in business because old people like me.
It's like Tracy said, if we show our AARP card, get something out of it.
I do that.
I think if we go to 11 o'clock, you guys do what you can to make improvements, and it sounds like you already have. Look into, not requiring a meter, a recordable meter, but I would suggest looking into it because it'll help your cause. And then as far as on the outside, I would kind of explore sound damping. It's not just bushes. There's other things you could do where it's not gonna impede your view so much. 'Cause
Even on the
it's-
river, will it?
That's why you need to find out about. All I know is that there's various things that can be put
You
in
could have-
place.
Temporary sound damping for your, when you have a band stuff, just throw it up quick. Something
We have.
basically-
Done that.
We've had
That
one
didn't-
full
that didn't
air
work.
windows and that
That didn't
didn't,
work.
it didn't matter.
Yeah, like if
Out-
we.
I mean, outside on your,
Mhm.
really.
Like the perimeter of the beer garden.
Especially every time I DJ'd, I would put foam up along all our windows facing towards the river to try to
Yeah.
eliminate the vibration that was coming out toward the.
Yeah, but if you have performers on the outside, then that styrofoam or whatever.
Okay, so it sounds like what we got is May through September, mirroring, noise, including bass and vibrations. May through September from 11 PM to 11 PM on Friday and Saturday. Looking for 10 o'clock Friday and Saturday, October through April. So those two will mirror each other.
That was May 1 through September 30.
Yes, I'm sorry.
I think
yes,
that's smart,
yes,
yeah, so
yes.
it gives you a month
May
either way.
1 through September 30.
Yeah.
So you may have a nice May, probably not, and you may have a nice September, and it gives you kind of an extra buffer, everyone an extra buffer, but not just,
Wrong with going 11.
well, you're not gonna,
On Friday, Saturday.
On the weekend.
Any weekend.
You might have a few people.
I'm okay with
Off
this.
season, you're not gonna have that many, really.
Show of hands, preference for extending to 11 Friday and Saturday nights only and call it the summer, May 1 to September 30, or year round.
I think I get it on both.
Just in the summer?
I make it year round.
Oh, he just asked for just some.
Okay, just in the summer, just
Oh,
May 1 to
summer.
September 1, show of hands that prefer that?
But are the choices
Or,
year-round
or year round, I'm sorry.
for
Those are the
just
two
Friday and Saturday?
Yes, just Friday.
Just Friday, Saturday.
Friday and Saturday year round.
Year-round at 11.
Year round, yeah.
Okay, so that's at least sufficient to put it in the draft ordinance.
So that's noise, vibration, we're doing beer garden as well.
Yes.
Did it all.
It keeps it so smart.
Anybody who's in a beer garden in the middle of January can sit there until 11 PM to listen to music.
What are we gonna do after
It's
11?
crazy. Just don't play polka, please.
Or at any other night of the week, are we going to stick to a faint or noticeable noise, or are we gonna go off the actual decibels? As far as noise, I mean, obviously, you can go in and you can see vibration, so I can see that being different. You can see something rattling or shaking off the wall, but as far as a faint noise, are we gonna go off a
So
decibel
it
read?
was never
Plainly
It
odd.
was plainly on. Is what it was.
Okay,
I just want to clear that up. No, your citations are free. Right, that's a whole different ballgame, and I explained that to you, and that's why you should take it to court.
I am.
Okay,
You might,
so the other portion of that is no, the ordinance is plainly on.
okay, so are we moving from plainly audible to the actual decibels as stated in the ordinance on 3.8 in the chart at the level? In my opinion, it makes it easier for everyone. Again, I think noise or vibration should be different. If you can go inside and you can see stuff rattling off the walls, we can keep that in there because we can't measure that. But I think if it's just hearing music but is under the threshold, they should be okay.
Again, though, I think we're talking about time periods, again, so we're talking about a time period that's after this time period. And now you're still able to hear it plainly audible. So, I mean, I don't think you should be able to after that time period when everything's basically shut down.
What's the time period? I guess I'm.
11 p.m. So, like.
Oh, after
so-
11?
But you know
I
it's
would
you,
take it
Bob. You're not closed.
Well, correct, but again, should you be able to hear that within your enclosed area? Again, we're talking about being able to sleep and everything. I would say no, personally. I'm just gonna argue opposite of you.
I would encourage the council to leave that provision, understanding now it doesn't kick in until 11 o'clock on weekends, but I don't get it.
And again, I'm saying that now, not only do you have to be pretty particular about how annoying that noise is, but But then you also have to invite an officer into your house at 11, 15, 12, midnight, 1 in the morning, because that's how much it annoys you. You have to be a named complainant, you have to go to court, so an officer also has to verify that. And our officers have body worn camera and everything else, so it's gonna play in favor in court, and now it goes to court and the judge has to agree. I think there's plenty of steps in there, I'm just saying.
I just don't think it's fair. And I'm not even talking business to residential, I'm talking even residential to residential. So after 11 o'clock, I can't have a fire
Apparently not.
with a boombox playing. I do that. I don't have neighbors that
We
complain,
get complaints like that though.
and I don't think
We
that's
do
fair.
get complaints like that, where people are outside at a fire with a boombox that's too loud, now they're trying to sleep, and they complain, we hear that inside their house. So we do get those calls.
I get up at 6 the next morning and start playing my.
Dude, right back.
If I'm mad.
Right.
That,
Speakers just.
that makes life interesting.
Again, I understand your stance, I'm just telling you also. the
I don't think the whole world should have to go to bed at
residents that
7 o'clock. I mean, because quite frankly, because you're talking no noise, so you can hear me talking. You're pretty much telling me that if you can hear me talking at my fire,
It would have to be plainly audible with, again, all my doors and everything closed. I deal with a lot of stuff with neighbors that I don't necessarily like, and I don't hear that stuff with everything closed up. Windows open, different story. I'm just saying. And the amount of calls that we get are minimal,
I can tell you, I can hear my neighbor.
but you don't call on your neighbor either, right?
Of course,
A
not,
lot of
because I'm
these-
a reasonable person.
Right, but again.
But if I could, I could get to a
show of hands
citation.
on that? No.
Not a reasonable person.
I'm sorry.
I would agree, but I think an ordinance is really in place and is being enforced on the times when reasonable just doesn't work anymore. That's really what happens. A lot of these ordinances, I would argue, that are in place because people cannot get together, they can't work it out, and that's where this comes out. That's
But
really
they're-
what it is.
But under the ordinance though, then they're not forced to work it out either. We're forcing it black and white, so it could be one time. Never had another issue before, I could call, and you'd come there, you'd write them a citation, I wouldn't even have to call them up and say anything, I could just get them a citation, just say, you know what, ticked off, Jim. Today's just not a good
That
day.
you gotta go to court.
Yeah.
What a waste of time and energy and money.
But I would argue that we already have issues like that, and he said number of things. You can look on Facebook right now, because I know a lot of people like to look at Facebook, and you can see some of the fence issues, for instance, that people just decided to come out and complain about, which probably would have never been seen otherwise. So there's all kinds of those ordinances. I can give you examples too, both sides. I'm just saying, the actual reality is, it's enforced very little, that people actually are annoyed to the point that they call us up and complain and have us, actually invite us into their home. People don't like doing that with cops. And, so that's how serious it's gotten. They're annoyed enough to invite us into their home, and then go to court with it too. So that's where we're at. And honestly, in the two cases that you're talking about, I've already told you.
I know.
One of them, I think, got booted, because of certain circumstances, and so you
I-
really have one
I
reality.
get that. I get that, and I truly do get that, but I don't want any tickets, period.
I get
I wish not to be the person that's getting a ticket. I don't know how many other bars get tickets for, how many complaints.
Well, I told you before, it's happened to other bars.
I get it.
One
I've never heard
one's
of
not
it,
even-
but
One's not even in business right now.
correct,
But
well, I
there was
get that.
another
but-
residential one that was having issues all the time too, similar to yours, so it's not a focus thing where it's just you. There
I
was a
get
time when that bar was the focus.
I understand that, but I guess Whiskey D's was brought up constantly in a meeting where you then had to go do decibels, you had to do this, you
Yep.
changed ordinances. It's insulting.
Well,
It's
right, but I would
embarrassing.
also argue that we changed those ordinances in favor of the tavern.
The old ordinance is worse.
I know, I don't disagree with that.
But movement has been in the right direction
But-
in many respects.
And I think we're here again to try to improve it.
I agree, and I respect that.
Tracy.
I truly do.
On that section, and it's highlighted, 2B, and I know you want to see that, the only thing I would like to see changes, I'm assuming we're gonna be consistent and change it to 11,
Yeah, that's what he said.
okay.
That would be 11-7.
But I personally support having somebody, if they're gonna complain after 11 o'clock about noise going on, and they can hear it in their house and whatever else, that they have to give their name and address and have an officer show up at whatever time it is to come in there, in the closed place, and if they can hear it. I mean, I don't know if they need to give a citation right away, maybe, I don't know, a warning or something, but,
That's typically discretion on the officer's part.
For what?
For whether it's a warning or a violation.
Well, when
Unless you're
somebody,
directed otherwise.
when it's been, somebody wants to be a named person, named complainant, that's when a citation, because they are going to court for it. That's not just a whim. That's,
Okay,
they're
so-
going to testify in court that.
so they have to press charges, in other
Yes.
words. Okay.
And understand if you go with the, was it a motion, what the straw vote was on earlier on the vibration standard, which is 2 pages further back, which now can be enforced 24/7. That's effectively would be peeled back to the period 11 PM to 7 AM. And frankly, Chief, this is unscripted, but we certainly, I don't think the requirement's a given there too, if it's gonna be enforced. Maybe there should be language there as well, like on the first one that's, violations of the subsection shall require verification by an officer and an identified complainant. It's a given already, or otherwise you wouldn't show up inside somebody's house to feel if their china was vibrating. But I think the ordinance would be improved by stating that, just like it's stated on page 2 of 8.
I'd just like to go back to what Adam said too, when you're talking about that 2 feet, that doesn't have anything to do with just talking outside a residence, either it's residence to residence, that is music. It clearly states only music, so that's just one clarification. I think what we could do a better job of is defining plainly audible, or maybe like we talked about, if an officer can clearly identify the genre of the music, or hear plainly audibly that he can hear the words to the music, something along those lines.
Or what the decibel level is inside the house.
I just don't want everyone to have to go to bed at 11 o'clock at night. Even at a residence. I don't know.
Well,
I had plenty of fun when I was younger and I didn't go to bed at 11 o'clock, I can guarantee you that.
this
Made a lot of noise, but I had good neighbors.
This particular sentence, although I don't think it does a very good job of describing the current technology, it does say the use, operating, or permitting to be played, used, or operated with any radio receiving set, musical instrument. I think something with, electronically amplified sound is really what that's getting at. Maybe it applies somewhere else, and it's actually under the heading, radios, phonographs, or similar devices. So if this section at least wouldn't apply to that backyard. What if you're playing music? Gotcha. But it wouldn't apply to a conversation unless you were using Mr. Microphone or something, or, doing karaoke, conversation, maybe there's another section that applies.
No,
This-
and where this came up is, Tippy's, for instance, another one that was constantly dealing with noise complaints. There's one, where basically it's an Airbnb nearby, so there was constant complaints over that. But that was simply basically more of the beer garden type thing, talking outside in the beer garden. So that covered that.
People talk on the street outside taverns.
Like you're good, there's amplified sound.
So at least two different taverns I can definitely address with you, other than whiskey bees that had very similar circumstances with a lot of complaints.
Okay. Yeah, again, I'll just state the fact that I would still like to see that on, after 11 o'clock too. I really would have a decibel reading to be enforced even at the residential side of things.
To be basically the sole means of enforcement.
So I think you should be able to play some music.
Is there any further support for that?
I didn't see any.
It wouldn't just be after 11, it would be the whole shebang, right? With the meter?
Would follow.
Oh, it would follow the times, yeah. We could adjust that too. But, or what about the person that works on second shift who just gets home? You've got to tiptoe around.
The other thing I would throw out there, and Chief and I touched on this briefly between our meeting with Whiskey D's and tonight, the vibration, we probably should break out separately so it is specific to vibration, limiting it to 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. for vibration caused by music amplified sound. I think we may want it to still apply 24/7 to construction noise or somebody's dust collector at a business that's had bad hearing or something. I think the real intent is to not unduly restrict entertainment, outdoor or music. So we may want, that's a pretty broadly written provision right now on vibration.
Chief, well, we still have construction noise and stuff.
Okay, well, maybe
That
that's
falls within
sufficient.
there. What I would ask for is also consistency with that decibel rating, just so that the daytime, right now it's 7 to 10 p.m., 10 p.m. to 7. However, on Friday, Saturday as well, that we need it, so basically it would say daytime, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. with the exception of Friday and Saturday nights, that it stays at that top reading. Because I want consistency throughout.
Yes.
Okay, so the 11 p.m. Friday, Saturday kicks in.
That would make sense.
And the consensus on that was year round.
Yes. If there's not support for mine, it's okay. We can test the waters with this, see how the heck it goes. Maybe we can even ask Chief for a report next year to see how many complaints we get after 11 o'clock and see if there's a lot from resident to resident to see if there's something that can be slightly adjusted to go up the decibels for people that may be having fires or might be enjoying the outdoor night and have a boombox playing. I don't think we want to neglect them necessarily, but maybe it's something we can take a look at. Again, because this is a big change in our ordinance, the way it is. Personally, I like to change the whole thing, but that's okay too.
I wish I could hear what they hear, because then I would,
That we can't do.
I know.
Stop that, why Kim?
We're
Tell
not,
it to the juggler.
we're not gonna allow that.
I know, but I really do, because I feel terrible. I don't want to keep anybody up or hurt anybody's feelings or anything like that. So I just wish I could hear or see what they,
Well,
I know I can.
I'll say though, the grand scheme is, it goes right back to that balancing. So,
Yeah, I know.
I feel for you guys, I
Would
feel
call the
for,
bar anonymously and let us know if that's a problem.
I feel for both sides.
I do too.
I understand your point of view, and I also understand it's probably 50-50 at least,
Mhm.
throughout the city.
Okay, you guys feel comfortable with that being a good,
I do.
good step in the right direction? So hopefully we
I
can,
appreciate it.
we can get to that point, stay within those parameters, keep you guys in business, happy, successful, but we can also keep our residents happy, successful in their homes as well. So hopefully we
And
can.
there's one resident you can take their complaints from about waivers.
Yes.
Remember, our live stream, I didn't say that.
Yes. Good. All right, is that anything else you want from Matt?
I just know we will email you guys a copy of the draft ordinance amendment that will be on next Monday's agenda.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing we've dissected A for an hour and a half, we're gonna move on to B, which is an update on the 2024 budget review. Greg?
Yeah, and I didn't put it on here because we're
Unless you want to stay and talk about
I
it.
don't want to talk about the budget.
I would leave, I would run.
just keep the bar open after budget. Yeah, and again, nothing, this was just a short agenda, so I just wanted, and budget review, I think, from a staff standpoint, I think the committee standpoint, is going good, and we do need to get Jeff home early, because it's past his bedtime. He's old, thank you for stipulating that. So this is the same budget review session, schedule we saw earlier this year. We are on target, and this week, Thursday, most of you will be at a meeting because it's a joint meeting of the Finance and Utilities Committee. So that's Thursday night at 6 in this room. We've then got 2 more Thursdays scheduled, I think. Depends on the committee too. We may be able to wrap it up on Thursday the 9th, but there is an allowance for the 16th. If we need it, the council budget hearing would be the November work session. That's the Monday after Thanksgiving. And then consistent with recent years, the budget adoption meeting is on Monday, December 4th. And that would be the meeting where, of course, we not only adopt the budgets for all the funds, but set the city tax rate for the coming year and approve the business improvement district levy. So if there are any eruptions on that front, the sooner we can know, the better. The bid board did meet the other night, and again, it's recommending the $2 per thousand bid levy. So that's where it lays out. I will do a summary presentation on the budget as part of my city manager's report on Monday, just so we're sharing with the community what some of the highlights are. And there may end up being a couple areas where the city manager and the committee are at variance, but overall, I think we're pretty good. I can tell you where some of them are right now, but that's okay. You have your role, I have mine. It's up to the 8. So, but those are pretty few. I think those are pretty few.
Yeah, we've come a long way. We look like we're pretty close to ending, pretty much have all the budgets in. We're just trying to finagle the last part of the general fund.
Yeah,
There's only one pretty much item there, I believe, that we're
Yep.
kind of on disagreements with.
and trying to get capital spending, especially in light of the much higher interest rates, down to a reasonable
Capital spending down, which we have a plan for too.
Yep.
So
Like to
hopefully
get
that can be,
get the tax supported capital spending below 2 million additional, because we retire about 2 million a year.
those are pretty much the two that I know
I think so.
of. I think other than that, we're pretty good.
Maybe usual, I'm not gonna get the whole thing, but.
But we gotta operate somehow. And the library is asking for an increase in the levy in support of the library. I know you've all gotten a lot of feedback from citizens on that, through contact council. I support that. Committee may vary from that to different degrees, anywhere from no to no, maybe something lesser. So, that's really all I had intended there.
Okay. Well, most of us will meet again on Thursday, the Utilities and Personal Finance.
And I said to the finance committee, we will have pizza next Thursday because come prepared for a fairly long week. The utilities are a huge part of the budget. So, all of that, Mr. President.
All right, looking for a motion to adjourn. Thank you, Jeff. Second by Darla. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you and good night. That's good work.